Hi, I'm Karma Kitaj. I'm your host for A Livelihood, and as I've said before, I've slightly changed the subtitle, so we now call it New Adventures as We Age. And today I'm bringing you Ruth Nemzoff, who is going to tell us about her journey from a lot of different things to what she's doing now. So welcome, Ruth.
Well, thank you. It's fun to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. So we're going to talk about your journey, which I think you told me that you went through a number of different transformations in your life.
Right. Well, I started here at Brookline High School,
I
graduated
didn't even realize
in Brookline High.
Yes,
and
we're here in Massachusetts.
Yes, and then went to New York for college, Brandeis College, and came out and I taught for a few years. And then my husband and I went to India with the Peace Corps.
Oh.
And then I came back, and the only job I could find where they didn't ask if I was pregnant was working for the State Department of Employment Security. And I found my niche in life, which was finding jobs for persons with disabilities. And that led to a whole career in running programs for persons with disabilities, starting a Goodwill Job Placement Agency, then in New Hampshire, citywide programs for persons with retardation. And that led to being asked to run for the legislature. I might say my volunteer time was used starting the women's movement up in southern New Hampshire and consciousness raising groups. And so between the two programs, I was quite well known in the community. But at the same time, I applied for a doctoral program. And to my shock, I was accepted. So I was commuting down to Cambridge every, 2 days a week.
So a doctoral program in what field?
Administration, social policy, and planning. Because I was observing mothers of kids with disabilities as being incredibly competent and bringing up their families and contributing to their communities. But what I was reading in the literature was that they were neurotic and psychotic and to this and to that, and I felt that was not true. So I went with the notion of what I was going to write my dissertation on. It was time to figure out what was the next step.
So how did you do that?
Well, I took a course in Radcliffe in The Older Woman. And there was a wonderful book in this course called The Girl Within by Emily Hancock. And it said, look back to that time when you were most free and picture yourself in that pre-adolescent time. And what did you want to be then?
Yeah, because that's a kind of an exercise that I sometimes give to the people that I coach.
Right.
Because so often we don't know, and we can get these insights from looking at ourselves a long time ago.
Exactly. And so I got that insight, and I realized I had wanted to be a politician. I had remembered my parents taking me to the State House and my looking around and saying, there aren't any women here. I want to be.
You were a feminist back then.
Absolutely. Born one.
Preteen.
Absolutely.
So back to your having taken this course.
And then I decided, well, I also wanted to be a professor. So it was time to be a professor. So I went back to my doctoral advisor, Sarah Lightfoot. And
whom you said was quite a bit younger than you?
Yes, 10 years younger, but absolutely fabulous woman. And she said, well, Ruth, I think you should apply to Wellesley to be a student scholar, to be a scholar, a visiting scholar, like I know you were. And I had 2 marvelous years there, and from that I got a job teaching at Bentley. And then
teaching what?
U.S. government and gender studies. So
there
I was beginning to
professor.
Correct. And I was beginning to combine the past, my legislative experience, my volunteer experience, in terms of...
you were weaving everything together.
Exactly. And then I became a scholar at Brandeis because they opened their program then. And so I began researching the subject. And then I wrote a book here, Don't Bite Your Tongue, How to Foster Rewarding Relationships with Your Adult Kids, after talking with hundreds of women and leading workshops on, what did work for people as we begin to craft this new relationship with our children who we love with incredible passion, and but at the same time realize that they are adults and have the right to differ in opinion and actions from us.
So can you tell maybe a few stories from the book of people whom you interviewed people?
Yes, lots of different people. Well, what I can tell is that many of us, I can tell you from, since I've written the book, I've given about 200 speeches at various organizations. And one of the recurring themes is we don't know what to do. It wasn't like it was in our day. In our day, maybe we were married in our 20s, our kids are marrying much later. Or maybe they're confused because, they had Dr. Spock or Brazelton's books when the kids were young, and there are no guidebooks now.
So how does it make a difference, do you think, that our children are marrying later?
Well, I think that when they are marrying later, they often still come to you for the normal stresses of life. That stoplight didn't change. Or I've got a big decision to make. What job should I take? And they use you as the sounding board in a different way than they might others that we may have used our spouses in those days. So that would be an example. So what I do suggest to readers is that they first know the environment, because our children are dealing with a very different deck of cards from the one we were dealt. Certainly we all know the economy has changed.
That's bringing a lot of adult children
back home. But it's also bringing a lot of us to our adult children's homes. So how do we negotiate living together? And that can be for short periods, a vacation, or for long periods, i.e. loss of job or divorce or old age. So how do we negotiate that? And so what I've done is at the end of each chapter I have questions that people can ask themselves and their children, hopefully share it together or share it with friends, because we all have different ways of viewing situations, and we all come up with different answers.
What does that take on the part of parents of adult children to be able to get to the point of being able to be heard and also to hear their children?
Well, I think realizing that we're no longer the experts on everything. We know a lot about life, but we only know about a slice of life in a certain time and a certain place. So it's the curiosity, I think, to figure out what is it that my child is living through, and what do they know.
It's not only that things out there are changing, but we're two different people.
Right? Absolutely, and I think that's, of course, terribly important. Knowing ourselves, understanding our children are different, and I think realizing that adults have the right to differ.
How are your children dealing with your new success?
Well, they've been marvelously supportive, I have to say. They've been thrilled for me. They did read parts of it. Some of them edited it. Different ones made suggestions. I did give them the right to take things out, but they didn't. They did make improvements, though. They did educate me. It gave us a wonderful opportunity just to talk.
So it sounds like maybe one of your pieces of advice for parents of adult children is to live an interesting life.
Oh, absolutely. That's my last chapter, is all about this is our time now to figure out what we want to do with our time. And I think this fits right into your program, This is our time to do the things that we had always hoped we would do, but never quite got around to, or to use our talents, whatever they are, or to share our experience. And if we can't share it with our own children, we can share it with someone else's child.
Tell me, what has it been like for you to give all these talks in public fora?
Well, I've spoken at all sorts of different organizations, from church groups, synagogues, to I'm speaking at a spa in May.
You told me going to Mexico.
Yes, exactly.
Pretty fabulous.
I've spoken in India, China, and England and Canada. And what I've learned from this is that the issues are the same in any change in society.
So in India and China, the gap between the generations could even be larger than it is here.
Sometimes, in some ways. Certainly the changes are the same. We may be worried about who our child is dating, but the family in in India might be worried that they are dating.
So we're just about out of time, Ruth.
Okay.
And I've very much enjoyed hearing about your book, and as you remember, I did read it a while ago, and I wrote about it on my blog, which is called retirementasYouWantIt.com. So that's another place that people can search for your book.